With each passing day, the American people are reminded of the peril attached to the Obama administration's inflexible determination to conduct American foreign policy based on campaign promises made back in 2008. These goals, unilaterally withdrawing from Iraq and Afghanistan based on fixed deadlines, ending the war on terror, and some of the critical tools used to pursue al-Qaeda, closing the secure detention facility at Guantanamo Bay, withdrawing from our deployed forward presence, slashing investment in our conventional armed services, and pursuing nuclear agreements with Russia and Iran at any cost have remained constant, although the world has changed right in front of our commander-in-chief. And yesterday, we saw the Obama administration threaten to veto the National Defense Authorization Bill, which recently passed the Senate by a large bipartisan majority of 71 to 25. It passed the House by a big bipartisan margin as well. This is the legislation that sets out military policy and authorizes funds for our military each year. It's always one of the most important bills we consider every year, but it's especially important right now. The number of threats currently facing us is truly staggering. The last month and week have brought glaring reminders. We're now seeing Russian forces deployed to Syria to preserve the Assad regime. Though Moscow may try to call this some kind of counterterrorism campaign, let's be perfectly clear. Russia's offensive is designed to protect Assad's Alawite stronghold and Russian military installations while driving out the moderate opposition and compelling coordination of Syrian airspace with the coalition. Russia aims to forcefully insert itself into the middle of coalition operations to gain insights into the plans of the United States and, of course, to secure a seat at the table. Meanwhile, our moderate Syrian allies stand appalled that the United States has ceded its leadership position in the broader Middle East. And of all the promises made by this administration, withdrawing from Afghanistan by a date certain seems to ignore the attack upon Kunduz by the Taliban and the desperate efforts of President Ghani to secure the gains of the coalition and his country's future. How can the administration be pondering a withdrawal of the force when the Taliban's offensive persists and the campaign against al-Qaeda has not yet achieved its defeat? So many threats face us, from Russia and Iran to Syria and ISIL, even China, as do so many different means of attack: conventional, cyber, or terror. And now the Obama administration is talking about vetoing America's national defense bill. They're talking about vetoing the national defense bill in the wake of all of this. Now, I'll have more to say about the national defense bill in the coming days, but this is about more than one bill. It's the latest in an increasingly worrying pattern. Just last week, Democrats voted again to block funding for our military. Democrats had voted for that military funding bill in committee. They issued press releases praising the bill they had supported in the Appropriations Committee. But then they blocked the Senate from even debating it. Now they appear ready to give the same treatment to our veterans. Democrats voted for the veterans funding bill in committee. They issued press releases praising the bill, but now they seem prepared to block the Senate from even debating this bill, too. It's all part of some half-baked Democratic scheme to get more money for the IRS and for Washington bureaucracies. It makes no sense. It's extreme, and it needs to stop. The veterans funding bill before us would do right by the men and women who've given everything to protect us and who've suffered so much under the failings of this administration. This is the bill that supports veterans by funding the health care and benefits they rely on. This is the bill. This is the bill that supports military families by funding the housing, schools, and health facilities that serve them. The veterans legislation before us provides support for women's health, for medical research, and for veterans suffering from traumatic brain injury. It provides funding for design work at a new VA medical center in Louisville, for educational facilities at Fort Knox, and for a special operations headquarters at Fort Campbell, all in my state. It also contains important reforms aimed at supporting veterans in the wake of a true national disgrace, the VA scandal. The reforms funded in this bill will allow for greater national and regional progress in reducing VA claim backlogs, and they will deploy important protections for whistleblowers, too. Look, we need to remember we have an all-volunteer force in this country. The young men and women who sign up to defend our nation don't ask for a lot, but our nation certainly asks a lot of them. These heroes shouldn't have to worry that their benefits or health care or housing and support their families need might not be there. There's a long tradition in the Senate of bipartisan support for our troops, our veterans, and their families. We saw that bipartisan tradition on full display just a few months ago when Republicans and Democrats came together in the Appropriations Committee to pass bipartisan legislation to fund our troops and support our veterans. We ask a lot of the men and women who serve. They don't need a bigger IRS or political games like the Democrats' self-described filibuster summer. They need our care and our support. It's our turn to give back to them. Why don't we get back to the bipartisan tradition of supporting these bills so we can do what we need to do for our veterans?